What is going on, guys? Pagani Gaming here, and welcome to a replay of round 6 wheel to wheel. And the reason why it's a replay is because during the actual race, my Elgato failed to record any of the footage that had happened during this round. So we had to settle for watching a replay, and we're going to be watching it in chase cam, otherwise known as Need for Speed cam. We're going to be watching it in backwards and forwards view, just so you can see what happens around us during a race such as this. So we qualified second on the grid behind CCH once again, but we had a pretty good start, so we passed him before the first corner, and a bit of a cluster at the first corner. I do believe I had some form of start to that incident. I think I did brake a little bit too early for that corner and sort of caused Rick Dock to go up on the inside and lose control on the grass. But what that did do as well was open the door for Tombo to move from 5th to 1st, just from that whole incident. And me and him had a pretty good battle for the entirety of this first race. We did have Evil One slowly making his way into the picture towards the end of the race. This track was very suited for the Lexus. Just in the qualifying alone, out of the top 4 drivers, 3 of them were the Lexus. So you had CCH in the McLaren, me in the Lexus, I believe it was Evil in the Lexus behind me, and behind him Vintage in the Lexus as well. So a pretty dominant track for the Lexus, and that's also not to say with the recent BOP changes that had been implemented into the game a few days prior to this round commencing. So BOP is abbreviated for Balance of Performance within GT Sport, and that's the developers of the game calculating how much weight and how much power certain cars have to make the races balanced between all cars on the track. So in the recent change, the Lexus lost a teensy bit of power, but also with that it dropped a huge amount of weight, which helped it around in terms of outright pace and being a slightly better car for longer races. So not only was this car really good on this track to start off with the BOP changes, on top of that, this car was definitely a car to look out for. The Jaguar and the Aston Martin were the same deal. But we've finally made a pass on Tombo here. We're in position 1, coming to the end of lap 3, and this track here doesn't really promote many passing opportunities. As you see, CCH and Evil One having a bit of a contact there, nothing too major thankfully. Evil still holding onto that third position. It was a pretty close battle between me and Tombo for both races for this round. The main straight was definitely a vulnerable spot to get past around. So being able to defend around this track was pretty hard. Some of these corners you can go around the outside. As you can see here, Tombo is going to try his best to. He's not going to be able to do that because I'm just a bit later on the brakes than he is. And again, this is another corner here where coming around the outside is a vulnerable position to get past on. Again, just making sure that I cover that outside line. Onto the side of lap 5 now, into the first corner. We're going to come onto the brakes at the 100 board, and I'm going to get a bit of a bump from Tombo there. I think that was him just having a slightly better tyre wear than I was. And thankfully I had a quick fast thinking decision to, for some weird reason, put the car into the wall to help slow it down, and thankfully that worked with not too much drama. Thankfully no damage, and there you go. Next lap, same corner. That's the move I was talking about, getting past on the outside. It is very easy to do around this track. There's a lot of width with this track, and the camber of the track can really help you get on the power a bit sooner when you're on the outside. But the one thing that is a massive problem with this track is that corner there that you just saw, especially with dirty air. You have to brake a lot earlier compared to the driver in front of you, just to make sure you make that turn. So as you can see there, both me and Tombo running a bit wide into the guardrail. Me making the most of that, both of our mistakes, and going up on the inside and making that move stick, putting ourselves up into first place. And then thankfully we held onto that position. A couple more moves by Tombo to try and make that happen. Unfortunately, last corner for him, he took too much of the curb and hit the inside wall. And that pretty much secured our win for the first race. The only bad thing is now that we have to now start from the back of the second race, which is always a difficult situation. But overall, a pretty good race by me and Tombo. Again, a good race by Evil and CCH as well. On to the second race now. And just to make matters worse, by starting with the back of the grid, unfortunately Troy HQ a bit further up ahead failed to realize that his car was in reverse on the grid and not in first. So instead of going forward, he went backwards, and that ultimately resulted into me, Tombo, Evil One, and I believe someone else as well getting involved in that moment, and me coming off third best, probably fourth as well in that incident. And that ultimately resulted into me being 5 seconds behind the closest car, just straight off the race. But thankfully, we caught up to the back of the pack rather quickly. It only took a lap to do so. The first corner, already getting passes on Hammy to the bone there, our livery maker, and then also gassing the Greg in the Mustang. Bit of contact there between me and him. Nothing too major, thankfully. We're now up to the 11th position. We knew we had the pace, we knew we had the car, and we knew we could make these passes stick on some of the drivers here. And Tombo, one of the drivers who were affected by that start on the second race, we passed him on the first corner of the third lap. And up on the inside here of K-Boy in the Mustang, I did think it was a bit of a rough move, so I did flash my hazards just to say sorry in case I did think that was a bit of a rough move. And then onto lap 4 now, first corner. A couple of cars getting held up there. In a very sketchy situation here between me and Vintage. It's not always easy on the eyes to see you and your teammate battling out, especially with contact such as that. But for the most part, we got to sort it out. A little bit of contact here. Again, a very on the edge of his seat moment there between me and Vintage. Thankfully, it was resulted pretty quickly. I'll go over the outside of him on this corner here. Thankfully, I made the move stick for the most part. He did have a better run than me coming out of that corner just because he had the tighter line. And then me and him, joined with 2 other Ford Mustangs, are going to drag race to the back on the back straight onto the main corner here. And we're going to be on the outside here and hard on the brakes at the 100 board. Still side by side, me and Vintage. Thankfully, I get the better on the outside of the line and secure 8th position. Onto the 6th lap now, first corner again. Massive braking opportunity and very easy to get past on. Me and Evil now, another Lexus driver. Bit of contact, nothing too major. And we entered Christ and Troy HQ up in front of us. And I was thinking of making a pass here, but I decided that would be a very bad decision. As the Tombo just comes in and bumps Troy, and then I get shrugged a little bit wide by Troy, and that made me drop down 2 positions. So I wasn't too happy about that. So we did drop down 2 positions, but we were still in a pretty close shout to make those positions back. You see we've got Evil One now getting a better line. I'm going to tuck him behind him here. And then same lap on the last corner. I'm going to go up on the inside of Evil One here. We're going to side by side, a bit of contact, thankfully nothing too major. And we've got Vintage behind us. So from 8th to 10th is all Lexus drivers. And we're going to go out on the wide, take the wider line here, and we're going to tuck in front of Evil here. And this is what I preach within my team. I preach about working together, as you can see there. Me tucking in front of Evil and then Vintage tucking behind Evil. Form a bit of a Lexus slipstream train. That did help us. That did help us all down the main straight, getting a slightly quicker down that main straight because of that. And then on the 7th lap here, again last corner. Unfortunately for Antichrist and Troy, having a bit of a moment. Thankfully we didn't come off too bad from that. Only got held up a little bit, but could have been much worse. Onto the 8th lap now. We're in 6th position here. Coming near the end, seeing Evil and Vintage battling out. I was a bit worried about them. I do know Evil is very aggressive and Vintage is very passive, so it should work on paper, but you sort of can send the wrong messages between 2 drivers if one's being really passive and one's being really aggressive in terms of making passing opportunities. But thankfully it was short-lived, that whole dilemma, as we come to the pits at the end of lap 8. And this was what me saving fuel had done. So you see Tombo there in 6th position, and we're sort of still trying to figure ourselves out with the ghosting. Tombo was 3.5 seconds in front of me before coming to the pits, and just because of the amount of fuel I saved, I managed to pull up right behind him, and now I've taken 7th position. And you see there, he's glitching a little bit there. a bit of lag, internet issues were coming to play for him, and that was a problem for some of the drivers. You can see there he's just all over the place, and then a massive moment there, and I wasn't too happy about that, so I started flashing my high beams. Thankfully he did see that and sort of came to realize that that move he put on me wasn't the cleanest. So it's coming up around here in this corner here, we're going to pass Hammy to the bone in the 86, and he's going to redress that position. We're going to slow down, allow us to come past. I mean, props to him for redressing that incident for something that's not really in his control. But starting on 11th lap now, we're in position 6, coming right up behind Tron to the first corner, and again a massive passing opportunity. We're going to go up on the inside here, hold that apex, make sure it doesn't go for an undercut. We managed to secure 5th position, and now we had a 4-second disadvantage to the car in front of us, which was Rexy. It took us 3 laps to catch up to him. He did have much worse tyre wear compared to me, so thankfully we had 2 laps to make a move, and I was right up behind him for pretty much the most of these last 2 laps. Again, having to brake a little bit earlier there. Him coming to the guard railing, he's going to notice that I'm probably going to make opportunity out of that, take the defensive line. I'm going to try to go on the outside, try and make it stick. It's not going to work. I'm going to tuck him behind him, try and use that slipstream, hopefully pull myself in front of him to the main straight. Failed to do so. Bit of a questionable moment here, a bit of contact between me and him. Could be seen as a bump and run, although I don't think it was anything too major. But again, it was a really good battle between me and him, and then what this also did was, because of that incident on the second last lap on the first corner, to open up the door for Tombo to come in and hopefully put himself up into a high position. You can see there Tombo behind us, closing the gap on me. So I was in a Ford Mustang sandwich, had Rexy in front of us and Tombo behind us. So I was also having to attack and defend, which was a pretty hard thing to deal with. Then we're going to tuck it behind Rexy here, try and juke him out, try and force him out wide, and then tuck him on the inside. He's not going to do that. We don't have the speed in the Lexus to do so as well. Braking hard at the 100, he has to take the wide, he has to take the inside line, so his exit speed is going to be a bit compromised. He's either running a bit wide. Thankfully for him, we were right behind him and gave him a bit of a boost. Then Tombo, thankfully for us, was behind us and gave us a bit of a boost. Again, letting off the brakes, clipping that inside guard railing, which didn't help with getting a good run out of that corner. Bit of a bump from Tombo, nothing too major. Hard on the brakes here. Last opportunity to make a pass, failed to do so. So we settled for 5th position with Tombo behind us. It was a pretty good race. I did say before this race started I would be happy with a 5th. To come back from a really poor start and dealing with someone who had pretty questionable internet, we did do pretty well. First in the first race and 5th after a pretty poor start in the second race. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new. With that being said guys, I shall catch you in the next one.